Okay, let's restart. This diagram is to recall the example I gave you last time. So because it's easy to remember with the example, the driving, where we identified that driving the mind to concentration is similar to this. So it's just an analogy where in order to drive the mind to concentration, we need to fight with the hindrances, 5 of them, and suppress them. Then only the mind goes to concentration. Similar to like corrective actions we take while driving. When the car is pulling to the left, we need to correct. Pulling to the right, we need to correct. It's like sensual desires and aversion pulling onto the two opposite sides, pulling on our mind to prevent it from reaching the concentration. And also going too slow is like sloth and torpor. Accelerating too fast is like restlessness and worry. And not knowing, not sure of the destination, again is a hindrance which is equal to the doubt, skeptical doubt that we have about concentration or absorption states of the mind. So we said this is the 5 forces model where the 5 hindrances apply 5 different kind of forces on the mind to put it in off track in our attempt to drive it to concentration states. Okay, then you may remember we discussed a strategy to fight, which is taming the 5 hindrances by exactly applying the opposite technique, opposite meditation. So we needed to identify 5 meditations in order to practice as a counterattack for the forces of 5 hindrances. What was the counterattack for sensual desires? What was the counterattack for the aversion? Just recall, you have learned all those by now. And this is the real use of what we learned. Like loving kindness is a counterattack or kind of antivirus for that mental virus called aversion. Then sensual desires, that meditation on unpleasantness of the anatomical parts of the body will get that hindrance away. One question coming on the chat. So what is light meditation? It's coming in our course. There will be time. Next week, I will introduce that. Right? Today, I will briefly mention. Next time, we will do it. Right? By the way, we will be having a quiz today and quiz next time as well, and also a makeup quiz, so that if any of you missed one quiz with the makeup, you will be okay, right? What about restlessness and worry? Solution is practicing breathing meditation. You can slowly overcome this influence of restlessness and worry. Sloth and torpor. Sloth and torpor is slowing down, making the mind sluggish. So you need a method of activating the mind or rejuvenating the mind, which can be done by one of the meditations we already discussed, which is walking meditation, which prevent the mind getting too slow and going to sleep. And that's not the only meditation you can use there, because there can be occasions where you can't walk, like that previous meditation we did. You recall you felt sleepy during a lecture. Now, can we do walking meditation at that time? The lecturer will not allow, isn't it? So you may not be free to walk at all times. In that moment, in such a moment, you can use light meditation, which I'm going to introduce later, which is totally happening internal to the mind, that will reactivate the mind. The theory behind that, let's do it a little later. Right? Then there is another thought that reactivates or rejuvenates our mind. When the mind is idling or too slow, sleepy, Swatantopa has taken over. I mean, if you recall that there is some urgency or deadline, say there is a deadline for assignment, then that thought itself will support you to be active again. So we think of the real deadline, not the assignment deadlines, but the deadline of our life. Every life has a deadline, you know. And these days it's becoming, the awareness is more and more high because of the pandemic as well. So we don't know whether we will survive this week or next week. So that kind of urgency is there. So that urgency, when you try to meditate upon the real deadline, the death, will reactivate your mind and energize yourself to overcome that sloth and torpor influence. Right? But we might not have time to meditate on that. And also, you are young, isn't it? You might still think that the real deadline is yet far away. So for the young, it is a bit difficult to meditate on death. And the other issue we have is we don't have time in our course to introduce all meditations. Therefore, I will try to introduce light meditation so that you can use the combination of walking meditation or light meditation and adapt one of them at a time. But you should know both so that you can pick one of them as suitable for the occasion. Right? Well, you are free to ask questions. I forgot to tell you at the start. You are completely free to ask any question by voice. Or if you don't feel like asking by voice, just jot down in the chat. Right, so this will be 4 of them. What about the doubt? Doubt is whether this is possible, whether is there something called concentration or samadhi. Are there people who have done it before? Will I be able to do it? So all that sort of doubt can be overcome by thinking of those clever people or wise people who have gone through that experience before, right? Like your religious leader, for example. Any confidence or faith you place on them will be really helpful to overcome this skeptical doubt issue or skeptical doubt hindrance from the mind. Okay. Right, so that is a summary of the plan, but for a beginner, since one of these meditations is not enough to suppress all 5 hindrances, I would suggest I would suggest you try all 5 at a stretch. It may take time, maybe 1 hour, 1.5 hours, but trying all 5 at a stretch is what is required for a beginner. If you are a seasoned practitioner, you don't need to try all 5 in order to get the mind to concentration. Any one of these 5 meditations will be enough for you. So that is the beauty of meditation practice. More you practice, easier it will become. So even one meditation will be enough to push the mind from the average state to a concentration state. But for a beginner, all 5 will be required, right? So the average mind that we have is called the ordinary consciousness. So that's what almost everybody maintain, ordinary consciousness. But when we meditate, this consciousness can be changed to a scenario known as access concentration. And further practice, it can be changed to first meditative absorption state, which we call MAS, meditative absorption state 1. There are multiple meditative absorption states. The first one is what is written here, first one. Well, what do we have in ordinary consciousness? I already mentioned there are 5 receptionists waiting inputs from the sensors to act upon, awaiting in the mind. You already know them. They are those 5 culprits called hindrances. Ordinary consciousness means that. So that's our normal mind, always dominated by one of these 5. An average mind or average person's mind is always dominated by one of these 5, one at a time usually. So from the day you were born up to now, if you consider how the mind progressed, you will notice that your mind was almost always under influence of these 5. Whether you are attending a lecture, whether you are watching a movie, or whether you run, or whether you exercise, always one of these are present. So you are under influence by the hindrances. Therefore, ordinary consciousness is what prevails. Then, using that 5 attacks, which I showed you in the previous slide, the 5-pronged attack on the 5 culprits here, you can get your ordinary consciousness to a level called access concentration, which is initial level of concentration, where the gross level of hindrance will become smooth. I mean, the gross hindrances will go away. It does not mean that the hindrances are fully absent here. They are present, but they are not very forceful. Right? Their gross nature, you have tamed. So no strong emotional pull by the hindrances now. You can experience calmness in your mind, and you can also experience some joy in the mind in the access concentration state. Well, then what is the difference between access concentration and first meditative absorption state? The difference being that here the hindrances are present, although it's not very powerful, they are present. in the first meditative absorption state, which is a special one because all 5 hindrances are completely absent, 100% removed. Temporarily, of course, temporarily 100% removed from the mind. Therefore, the mind is now withdrawn from sensuality. That means mind will not try to scan the eye, ear, tongue, those senses in order to gratify sensual desires. The mind is completely withdrawn from sensuality. It's locked onto itself. Mind is looping on itself. It will not be taking samples, or it will not be interested in taking samples from other 5 senses. Then attention will be a single pointed attention. We also call it unification of the mind on the meditation thought. Then absent, all 5 hindrances are absent. Instead of these 5 hindrances, some special mental factors are present now. They are known as jhanic mental factors or jhanic factors, which I will introduce in a moment. Hope this is clear. I'm sure most of you have experience in this area. Some of you may have experience here, right? But it needs a lot of practice to go there. Even access concentration is having 3 substates or more subtle substates are there. What are they? We call it access concentration level 1. I will introduce what is the difference. Then we have access concentration level 2. And then we have access concentration level 3. After that only, the mind will pass on to first meditative absorption state. Okay. So we need to identify these 3 substates and their characteristics so that when you experience any one of them, you will be able to identify. So far, no other questions I have received. I'm scanning from time to time. Well, what's so special about this first meditative absorption state is that there is a lot of joy, inner happiness, joy and delight born out of withdrawal from the sensuality. There will be focused thought and insight on the meditation thought. One question I'm receiving is, what are the Pali words for these states? Well, I'm not sure exactly whether I would remember. This state is called parikarma state. This one, I'm not sure. It may be upachara. Okay, upachara state. Third one is called arpana state. Sorry, this is known as the arpana state. But this third one, I'll find the word for you. Right. I will inform the three names. Right. First one is definitely parikarma, and I'm not sure which one of these 2 is upachara. Yeah, let me find that for you. Right. One more question. Can't we use the mindfulness of 5 hindrances to overcome from the hindrances, focusing on passing away of the hindrance? Yes, you can. The moment you become mindful of the hindrance, its power is gone. Its power is gone. So you have overcome most of its power. It's like a thief entering into your premises, and the moment you see him, notice him, and you become aware that he's there, then his power is gone, and your power will increase. Same way, the hindrances are trying to steal the concentration out of your mind. They are like thieves. The moment you notice that they are there, their power is gone. So that is what you are asking in this question. Mindfulness on 5 hindrances. The exact purpose is that actually. But a cause of a word of warning is that just because you noticed it, it might not go away. Right? You need to do some other kind of volitions in order to expel it. But noticing itself will solve 50% of the problem. Right? But you may not be able to completely repel because you don't know how powerful these enemies are until you try something against them. Their forces are like invisible forces. So you will notice how forceful a hindrance is only when you try to go against it and control it. Till then, your mind will consider hindrances as friends. And of course, the mind will also like them as well. Will never think they're enemies. They are real friends for average mind. I mean, if hindrances are not there, that mind will feel, or you will feel, how can I go on without this? That's the feeling you get. I mean, they are the real friendly mental factors. That's how you feel until you experience the concentration or absorption states. Then only you notice the damage they have been doing to your inner peace or inner happiness. So, but you are correct. Just noticing and becoming mindful of a hindrance is enough to take its power down. And so your power will increase. And with that new state, if you start introducing a volition against the hindrance, which is kind of a meditative thought, then you can fully expel that hindrance away. But mind you, the expelling all 5 hindrances away from the mind is a real challenge. Right? It needs practice, and also even if you practice, some downtimes can be there where you might not be able to get that absorption state at certain parts of certain periods, and then you need to practice again, and all that sorts of problems could be there. It's an analogy. It's like a piece of cloth. The mind is like a piece of cloth. And normally due to this use with the hindrances, it would be dirty. And through a cleaning process, if you can find the correct cleaning process, which is that 5-pronged attack which I mentioned, you can clean it fully from the 5 hindrances. So that's one analogy you can remember. Normal mind or average consciousness is like a dirty piece of cloth. But with correct cleaning procedure, you can clean everything, all impurities, and get the mind pure again. Another analogy I will give later. This happens through this process of suppressing the 5 hindrances while allowing 5 other mental factors to arise. when these 5 mental factors arise, it is mind is shifted to a different gear. It is going to concentration and absorption states. So the normal 5 receptionists, you will have to sack them, okay, expel them, employ these 5 new receptionists. They will make the organization of the mind beautiful and joyful also. Well, what are these new factors, jhanic factors? Okay. Let's discuss them one by one now. Of course, they should have force to go against one respective hindrance. Okay, there is one jhanic factor. I'm talking about these factors now. Dhyanic or jhanic factors. In Pali, these are called dhyana. Dhyana. Dhyana means higher levels of concentration. That means all 3 access concentrations has passed. Then applied initial thought. Applied thought or initial thought, one of them, right? Either applied thought or initial thought is the name of that mental factor. When that is present, it will not allow the mind to be taken over by sloth and torpor, because sloth and torpor is trying to slow down the mind. But applied thought will revive it. Then there is a mental factor called sustained thought. There is another mental factor called delight, another one called bliss or rapture, and the last one called single-pointed attention. These 5 will really go up against the 5 hindrances and take over. So they will become the new receptionist of the inputs. Of course, this time the inputs will not be coming from other 5 senses because you are not interested. You may not have shut them down, but you are not interested on the other 5. Therefore, in an absorption state, your input will be only coming from the mind itself. Mind will take the input from itself rather than taking samples of sound or color or anything from outside, any of the 5 from outside. So what are they going up against? This applied thought is the antidote or antivirus for sloth and torpor. That means when applied thought is present, sloth and torpor cannot be present in the mind. Sloth and torpor can be completely suppressed when applied thought is sufficiently powerful. Then sustained thought is the antidote for this other restlessness and worry hindrance. Delight, what could be, what will delight removing? What will it remove from the mind? When delight is present, can the anger be present in the mind? Anger and delight at the same time? Have you experienced? Not really, right? It's an antidote for ill will. When a person is happy, delighted, anger will fade away. Then bliss. Bliss, when bliss is present or physical bliss is present, the mind will not be searching happiness from outside because it's present, it's already present within the mind. So why worry to search it in the eye or in the ear? Why worry to search happiness from outside? Therefore, sensory desires, that is there to seek happiness from outside, will be removed now, because the mind will think, why should I reach senses? Because I'm already happy. So it's called inner happiness. Then single-pointed attention remove the doubt, skeptical doubt from the mind. in Pali, the skeptical doubt is called Vichikicha, and sensory desires Kamachand, and ill will, Vyapada, restlessness and worry, Uddacha Kukkucha, and sloth and torpor, Tinamid. Those are the 5 names in Pali language. And 5 names here in Pali. This is called Vitakka, this is called Vichara, this is called Preeti, this one is called Sukha, and this one is called Ekagata. So when those 5 are taking over the mind, hindrances will be expelled. How can we make those 5 to arise in power within the mind? It is by doing this. We pick the suitable meditation thought and let it run repeatedly through the internal mental loop. The details of the mental loop I can explain further later, but I think I have sufficiently explained all for you to get an idea. More details will come. Right? So once the mind fully locks onto this thought, single pointed attention will be there, and internal bliss, delight, initial thought, sustained thought, all that will be present. Okay. Applied meditation thought, you can repeat that same meditation thought. So first applied thought will come, that is the initial one, then sustained thought, because you are looping it. Let the mind think about it again and again, that sustained thought, finally leading to arousal of the delight, bliss, and the single pointedness within the mind. So this is how it happens. Applied thought, then repetition is called sustained thought. When sustained that way, given enough time, maybe say 10 minutes, 15, sometimes half an hour, depends on how good you are, then these 3 will arise. Okay. Okay, then about this diagram which I showed you last time, we know there were 5 hindrances like this. These are hindrances, these arrows, and these 5 were the mental states that were arising out of the influence of hindrance. When all 5 hindrances are absent, what will happen? Can any of these mental states prevail? No, the mind will not be lustful, will not be hostile, will not be contracted or distracted, it won't be deluded. So, when the mind goes to concentration, it will be moving to higher states of the mind, which we did not discuss earlier. Remember, there were 8 states in that previous meditation of mindfulness of the mental states, but we discussed only 4. The other 4 is present when the 5 hindrances are absent. Hope you remember their names. Sorry, this is that example, receptionist example, which I already highlighted to you. Okay. These are the Pali words I already mentioned. Included them to slides so that you can keep with you. One other thing, applied thought in some books will be described as by a different name called course examination. So be aware, course examination word also means the same thing as applied thought. Sustained thought, in that school of thought, it's called precise investigation. So course examination, precise investigation are the two words instead of applied thought and sustained thought. Alternative names you can remember. But we'll go by this name: applied thought, sustained thought, delight, bliss, single pointedness. Applied thought, sustained thought, delight, bliss, and single pointedness. And there is a way the mind will progress into deeper concentration. We already discussed that access concentration give you some delight and bliss born out of what? Born out of withdrawal from the five senses, withdrawal from the outside world. It is accompanied by an increase in focused attention and some insight. Right? But when you continue to meditate on the same meditation thought, be it loving kindness or be it could be even the unpleasantness of the body, that also can lead to a lot of happiness. It's well, sometimes it's difficult to grasp as well until you do that. Will that be possible when you think of unpleasantness of the anatomical parts? Can the mind be delighted, or can there be bliss? There will be. Right? There will be, because of the single pointedness arising. Now, here first, delight and bliss will arise due to the withdrawal. After that, it will increase due to the composure or inner poise of the mind, because the mind is completely focused to itself. Then you will find there is a state coming where your delight you had will fade away and bliss will become stronger. And associated with some other thing called equanimity and refined mindfulness will arise. So the delight, which is preeti, that factor will fade away. Bliss, the factor called sukha, will become strong. Equanimity is the factor known as upeksha, and it will arise with a heightened mindfulness level. So by that time, the applied thought, that course examination part, is not necessary anymore. So you notice it will progress to a state where pleasure and pain perceptions disappear. Both pleasure is on one side, pain is on the other, opposite. Both of them disappear and mind completely locks to equanimity state, upeksha state. Mindfulness grows strong at that time. And finally, single-pointed mindful equanimity will prevail. So it's no pleasure, no preeti, no sukha will be there. It's all very neutral, upekha feeling. But if you want to experience inner happiness, bliss, then you can be in a state somewhere here rather than pushing the mind to this state. So any of these states you can hold on before you push on to the next state. So what I explained so far is how the mind moves to first meditative absorption state, prathama dhyana kiyana mental state. But that's not the end there. Right? You have first, second, third, and fourth, the four initial ones. There are four other ones as well. There are slight differences here, which I will explain now. I'll use the same diagram as earlier to explain. Okay. First, meditative absorption state. What are the dominating mental factors? We already discussed that: applied thought, initial thought, the bliss, the delight as well as single pointedness. Those 5 are forceful in this state. Right? 5 jhanic factors have taken over the mind, and 5 hindrances are nowhere to be found within the mind. That state of the mind is called the first meditative absorption state. Right? Where you will experience delight, you will experience bliss, while you maintain the mind in that locked onto that meditative thought. But if you continue to meditate in the first meditative absorption state, the mind will be moving to a higher level called second mass, where this applied thought and sustained thought are not necessary anymore, because they need effort. They need effort, mental effort from your side. That effort will degrade delight and bliss. Therefore, what you are experiencing here as delight and bliss are not the maximum. Because of this effort to run the loop, delight and bliss will be less. But when that effort is not needed anymore, but the mind still remains single pointed, that is the second meditative absorption state. So delight is greater now, bliss is greater, single pointed attention is greater than in the first meditative absorption state. If you do the meditation further on the same meditation thought, maybe further time, it could be further 5 minutes, further 10 minutes, depending on your practice, even this delight will go away from the mind. Bliss and single pointed attention will be there. I'm sorry, give me 1 minute. I'll come back, right? Here, then delight goes away and only bliss and single pointed attention remains in the third absorption state. I think you can guess the fourth one. Bliss will also go away, complete equanimity or neutral attention will be there on the meditation thought. So you can notice the number of jhanic factors don't actually increase. They are on the decrease when the meditation goes to higher and higher levels. So more factors present, which means the concentration is less. Right? And this factor, single pointed attention alone will be present, because the mind will be on equanimity at that time in the fourth meditative absorption state. And this is the state where you are completely neutral, unbiased, and that is the best, that is known as the best state for wisdom. Because you are completely neutral and unbiased, you can think very clearly on that meditative thought and understand it fully. That level of understanding is called the real wisdom. In these parts, you may be still biased towards this happiness, like Preeti or Sukha states may be overwhelming, and you may be biased towards that. Therefore, you might not see you might not get the complete wisdom about the meditation thought there. So what I wanted to highlight is, as we drive the mind from first absorption state to higher and higher absorption states, the number of jhanic factors present in the mind keeps reducing until single pointed attention prevails. Okay, so it may look a bit strange if you are a newcomer to this area of concentration, because what we have understood as concentration needed for education, like we don't use the word samadhi for the concentration needed to solve a mathematical problem, isn't it? But it is still kind of a single pointedness associated with lots of other thoughts, worldly thoughts. Therefore, you might even wonder how can the happiness increase when the number of mental factors are reduced? Because that is because the mind is becoming more and more going to more and more rest. Right? That restlessness, which is associated with problem solving in engineering, will not be there in this level of absorption states. So average mind is like gold. Mind is anyway like gold. It's very powerful tool, we know, very valuable. But look at the analogy. This is gold with impurities, contaminated with impurities. Still useful, still valuable. But you know, if you can purify and get it to a more pure state, it's even more valuable. Why? Because with pure gold, you can craft any tiny or subtle craftings. But you know, contaminated gold, you can't craft into small, tiny, delicate shapes, like what a goldsmith will do. Right? What a goldsmith will do is, he will purify the gold, and will use the gold in order to do fine crafts, right? Tiny shapes, delicate shapes. That's what the mind will become. That's what the mind will become when you practice meditative concentration states. And they are much more flexible and much more inner happiness than the kind of mindset you use to solve engineering problems, right? Or mathematical problems or day-to-day problems. Right? But I would like to give little advice before we finish on that area. One is when you meditate for concentration, avoid falling prey to mystical mental images or insights. There could be various colors shown to you by the mind. Various kind of mental shapes could be projected into your meditation by your own mind. It's not coming from anywhere outside. Don't fall prey. The technique is to keep neglecting, keep disregarding any of those, even lights. Sometimes pure white light, all those you can neglect, right? Disregard. Right? Another very important thing is let go of any expectation for reaching or achieving meditative absorption states. Right? Never expect to achieve them. They are not achievement oriented. The moment you strive to achieve, you can be sure that you will never achieve it, right? Because they are evolving things rather than they will evolve in the mind when mind is not targeting them. right? Targeting to achieve. Or if you set them as goals and do it, it may be far-reaching. When you have them in your mind, when you get the mind into that level of concentration, you must consider them as no special achievements. They are not special achievements. They are simply different stages of deepening concentration. The moment you start thinking that you have achieved something special, the state will decay. So therefore, always think that it's nothing special. Why is it not special? Because they are fluid states. They are not going to remain. They are fabricated by volitions or intentions that you did in the meditation. Therefore, they are fabricated things. They are also temporary. They also arise for the reasons and pass away for the absence of such reasons. That's why they are not special achievements. So this is the mindset. This is the way you need to think about these mental states, so higher mental states, if you really want the mind to go into those states. Otherwise, they will be far-reaching for you. Well, after all, we discussed in the very first lecture that everyone is after happiness, isn't it? Everyone does everything for happiness. So these meditative absorption states have them naturally. That's why they are, once you encounter them, you will not be seeking happiness very much from outside. You might give up seeking happiness from outside. So this level of concentration, the samadhi, advantages are it will remove the hindrances from the mind. Hindrances are real trouble. They will be completely gone. Inner peace and calmness will prevail. You will have better vision. The mind is bright and spacious. You will have a very high level of mindfulness. When concentration deepens, the rising and passing away of aggregate sense faculties, mental states become more and more evident to you. Meditations on mindfulness will become easier. And moreover, this concentration leads to wisdom. Concentration leads to wisdom. So wisdom seekers love these concentration states because they are the best states to seek wisdom. Okay, so remember these four? Well, hostile, deluded, distracted, lustful. I'm sorry, these four, they are ordinary mental states. And the other four I just mentioned earlier, now they will be more relevant to you. But we have just discussed are these states. Great mental state, these are excess concentration levels. Then unsurpassable mental state, concentrated mental state, and liberated mental state. This is the full wisdom part. These are absorption levels. Right? This is excess concentration 1, excess concentration 2. 2 and 3, of course, both. Right? Okay, so that's the theory behind, behind concentration and meditative absorption states. You may not be able to reach some of them within a short time, but we maintain this level of knowledge or awareness about these mental states, higher mental states, so that you will, through practice, be able to experience them. Okay, we'll have next break there. And so that's all we will discuss about the concentration states. Okay, have 10 minutes break. We'll meet again.